Okay, good morning. My name is Jim Henderson, and I'm actually going to be taking you through this next hour of what's new in SoftPlan version 2020. This is our new release that was basically shown at the Builder Show in Las Vegas. And we are really excited about a lot of the things that we've included in the package. And what my goal is for the next hour is to take you through some of the major features, show you how they're going to work, how they're going to enhance your hopefully your design abilities with the program, as well as some of the other additions to the program that aren't necessarily considered a major feature, but still are going to enhance your design capabilities. Unfortunately, this is a sort of class that it's going to come at you rapid fire, hence the reason I'm going to be recording it. And so I'm not going to have time to have dialogue back and forth with you. And I just simply want to save you the frustration of necessarily typing in a question in the chat, because I'm not going to have the opportunity to really respond to those. I've just got so much that I want to cover with you. That said, you can go to our user forum, and there will be opportunities to interact with our staff over there. SoftPlan version 2020, as far as release is concerned, for those of you that are SoftPlan Plus subscribers, that is to say you are on the monthly subscription, okay, you will be seeing in these on the startup page the ability to go in, to log in from there. You'll have to accept a disclaimer, we'll need your key number, etc. And at that stage you can then place your order, so to speak. It's a part of your subscription, but there's still an order form process to go through. It is in the pre-release stage at this point, which is to say it's not a full release. It's not widely available at this point. That is still to come in the next few weeks. So it is rolling out. When you press the button and you accept and you place your order, that does not necessarily mean you get access to the program immediately. There's a process that goes through on our end here first prior to getting it. So we just ask you to be patient. The demand on it has been tremendous from our SoftPlan Plus subscribers, and it's being very well received as well. Okay, the screen that you see in front of you at this point is the new version, and it looks very similar to 2018 as far as the screen and navigating around. And so I'm going to be jumping in right away to one of the biggest features. You may have seen it on our social media pages already. We're posting or have begun posting videos that on Facebook, on the user forum, on the startup page, on our Instagram page, etc. So you may want to follow those, because we're going to be detailing and putting videos up, etc. of some of the new features. And the first feature that I want to touch on is what is called Annotated Elevation Sections and Interior Elevations. And in essence, what we are allowing you to do with this new version is to be able to constructively put dimensions, extensions, notes, symbols, and other details on live elevations that remain linked to your floor plans. Something you have probably heard a lot of, in the last 10 to 15 years is BIM, Building Information Modeling. And what BIM is in its pie in the sky is that the elevations, the bill of materials, the floor plan, the engineering drawings, all of the electrical drawings, etc. Everything is located in one central database, and that way, if a change is made on one sheet, it is going through and updating. Now, previous to this version, while your elevations could remain linked to your floor plan, there was a point in time where you would come in and do a save as and copy this out as a drawing, and at that stage, once you copied it out as a drawing, you could then add your notes and dimensions. Now, and I've got a floor plan that I'm working from, and those of you who are at the Builder Show probably recognize this one. But when you generate an elevation, at this stage, it comes up and it's in a shaded mode. And so I've got my siding and my brick, and they're shaded red, etc. And all I'm doing right now is I'm just basically changing that to texture to show it a little more detailed. But the big difference here is actually where it says in the status bar that it's in model mode. And as you change it to annotated mode, at this point, the dimensions are going to be automatically pulled onto the elevation. And so you'll see here in the ribbon bar some new buttons that have been added. The auto elevation marker lines, show on left, show on right. And as these are enabled or disabled, that is going to determine whether or not you see this information on the actual drawing itself. You can change this. You can certainly go in and you can modify how these elevation lines and markers read. That is going to be done in either the project or drawing level. Okay, and we'll get into talking a little bit about that later. But what you can do on this, what you'll want to do immediately is once you have your elevation generated, you of course want to go in and begin to add dimensions and notes to this. And so as I select the notes option at this point, I could now come into the detail note and I can click on the drawing screen where I want to add this note and begin to type in, what my note is going to read. And so as I come in here and I begin to type this note in, you'll see I'm basically on my way to typing in architectural shingle roof, etc., etc. And you'll notice I've intentionally actually gone in here and added them in both lower and uppercase at the same time. Okay. Oftentimes you're typing and you may have other documents going on in emails and you go from lower to uppercase and then you get something like this and you would actually delete this and then you'd retype it in with the caps lock. So one of the items that you can actually do now is come in as you're typing the note, and where it says display, you can leave it as entered. You'll also have the ability to flip the note to either all uppercase or all lowercase. So you'll have more control there, in which case I can do this, and as I do that, the note is now going to be displayed on the elevation in all uppercase. So again, you'll be able to go in and add the notes, whether they're detail notes, whether you're adding a speed note. Okay, so in this case here, I can come into the elevation notes. I can scroll down looking for, what the note needs to read. And in this case here, I'll point and click where I want the note to be added. And then from there, in the same way that you would do, your old saved elevations, if you will, you'll be able to now come in and add your pointers to the drawing, okay, on the actual elevation. So this is annotated elevations, and something we're very excited about. And the reason is because this is still linked to the floor plan. If I go into the floor plan and change something now, there's no more save as, and do I wish to merge or overwrite the elevation to update the changes, etc. You'll also be able to change things from this mode here. It's more than just adding notes and dimensions. So if I right click on the elevation itself, I can come down into the paint option right here, and where it says model, I'll be able to go in and edit the 3D options. Okay, as I said, this is a live model, so as I come in and begin to modify this, I'll now be able to edit things like windows and other editable items as far as that is concerned. So as you edit this, this is now being saved back to the floor plan, okay, and as you change that and close that information out, it's you're going to keep all of your notes and dimensions as part of the annotated elevation. And that's going to hold true for things like cross sections. Okay, so when you generate the model, okay, this is what you will get, and of course you can then go into the annotated, and in this case this is a finished elevation or finished cross section at this point where notes have been added to the annotated elevation using both speed notes and typing them in using detail notes as well. You will notice that in the annotated mode, okay, if you wanted to just simply go to visible line, you can. You'll be back to the the cross section that you may be, more accustomed to, and you'll still get the details of the hatching patterns for block and concrete, etc. Okay, and the same thing could be done for your interior elevations as well. And so if I just scroll down to show you, these would then just be dragged and dropped onto your actual plan sets that you've got there. So if I were to come in and open up this interior elevation sheet, okay, at this point we're going to see that we will have interior elevations, And as I scroll these across, we've taken the time to add some dimensions to this, and of course we could add notes. And the same thing for my exterior elevations. As I open this up and take a look at it, this is my plan set, if you will. This is the front elevation with the couple of notes that I have added onto the drawing. Okay, so that is annotated mode within the plan. There is a lot that is there that obviously I'm just scratching the surface for you, but we're very, very excited about that because we think that that's going to enhance your drawing capabilities. Okay, moving forward, and we're going to just be hitting a lot of this, some of this stuff rapid pace, is the fact that we have added the ability at this point to export to Lumion. Now, some of you may or may not be aware of this, but you've been able to do that, but you had to go through a third party in order to do it. There was not a direct export to that, and so now, as when you're sitting in your actual floor plan, etc., or your model that you've got here, you'll be able to come in through File, and at this stage you can then go to SoftPlan Publish. Now, it is a plus. It is part of the Plus package. Those of you who are on the monthly subscription, you're Plus subscribers, and you'll then be able to go into the Export Lumion FBX file, and it will go directly there. If you're not familiar with it, let me the amount of detail that you can add quickly inside, using the Lumion model. This would be an interior, view within SoftPlan very, very quickly. Now, I am in just a simple textured mode, so I've not taken the time to turn the ray trace on. But quickly, you'll be able to go in and with this third party, generate some, very realistic models. So this is someone that, some of you do some high-end renderings, etc., that you want to take it into a third party. This would be the same room. And then as you begin to look at the exterior, you'll be able to see it offers some options for for different types of renderings, and these were just created inside Lumion, after the model was created within SoftPlan. So I'm just wanted to open that up and show that to you. It's a very simple process of going through that file once again, and you're just going to go in through SoftPlan Publish and Lumion, and when you export that, it will take the surfaces, the layers, if you will, the model out in its entirety, which can then be exported directly to the plan. Okay, I'm not going to show you the import and export. I don't actually have Lumion on this system. I use SoftPlan for most of what I'm doing, but that's just for those of you who do use the software. The next one that I want to take you into, and I need to actually switch drawings on the fly here, so I'm just going to move out of the model that we're in, and I want to take you into a basic site plan. This is an actual project that I'm working on, and so I'm going to be pulling up the engineered site plan drawing for a second, and then I've converted it. So we've actually got this is the stamp, okay, drawing at this stage. And as I move into site plan, I basically just gone in and traced the outline of the site. Now that's something that you've done if you want to create a 3D model. And of course, when you do that, your site is now flat, right? And once you've got that site in there, you would then go in and add your topography. One of the things that we have added for SoftPlan version 2020 is the ability to take Google Maps site data and import that 3D terrain from Google directly into the site of SoftPlan. So what I've done here at this stage is I have gone to Google Earth, and this is the piece of property that I have right now. And basically this building, this church, is going through an addition process, and so part of that process is going to be a 3D model. It's going to be some cut and fill and doing a site plan layout, etc. And so the engineer has done theirs, but what I want to do is be able to extract the topography into SoftPlan. So what I'm going to be at this stage doing is in the lower right hand corner of Google Earth, it will give you the coordinates once you've done the search to find the property. And so I'm going to drag this off the screen, and we're going to enter that information into the to SoftPlan itself. And so inside the 3D model, I will simply come in through the options and sun options. And when I do that, I'll go into the geolocation map here, and I'm just going to type in what I've got on Google Earth. Now, so it's basically north 35 degrees, and then 49 minutes, and I'll just tab through to the next one, and 11, and then we're going west, and it's 86, 51, and 11, okay, as far as that goes. And so I'm basically setting that up, and once I have input the same geolocation coordinates for this, I can come back into the site and simply right-click on it. And when I select the Import Google Maps site data, at this stage you're going to see a host of shot points being called out on the plan. Okay. Now, again, the more, depending on where you are with Google Earth, some areas are regionally are going to have more detail than others. But once I have done this and brought it in, you can see at this stage now it is extracted to the site plan for me what the topography is going to look like. So again, this is just done from the geolocation. I input this information here, and then once I have done that, I just inside the floor plan or inside the site drawing, I did a import Google Maps site data, and you can then bring that information directly in. Okay, so that's going to be very helpful. Those of you, especially if you're like us here in Middle Tennessee, we've got a lot of rolling hills. There's no such thing as a flat lot here, etc. If you're doing walkout basements, this should make it much easier for you to even extract that information and then place your house on the site itself. Okay, continuing to move along, I'm going to go back to the actual drawing that that I had open just a moment ago and pull this up. And we're in a stage now where it is basically expected, thanks in part to HGTV, that you're going to be able to produce three-dimensional, images and renderings, and to what degree, will depend on your client base, etc. And folks want to see this on their social media. They want to be able to post it, and so on. And so we have tried at this point to give you something that will be easy for you to take your model and extract it through a 360 photo generator, and then import it either to a web page or directly to your social media page on Facebook. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull up a model here in just a second. So I'm going to let this generate. And in fact, I may take it out of textured and just take it down to shaded, mainly because that's going to generate just a little bit faster for us, on the drawing screen. And so the feature, just while I'm waiting for the model to come up, here is basically available to SoftPlan Plus subscribers, and it's going to allow you the ability to basically stand inside a room and do that 360-degree photo, and then once you have done that, you will then be able to publish that to your Facebook page. And so I'm going to get my Facebook page open here for this and get my model up on the drawing screen, and then we will take a look at that. All right, and I got a lot of detail in this model, so all right, there we go, and I'm going to move down the room into the kitchen itself. And so we are at this stage going to be standing here, if you will, which is just going to be in the middle of the room. We're going to look at the kitchen and so on. And so at this stage now, I'm going to come in through File, and I'm going to select the SoftPlan Publish. And here, in the same place you went for the Lumion export, you're going to see 360 photo. And I'm going to come in here through this 360 photo and click on this, and it's going to pull up a file name. And so for today, I'm just going to call it my Friday Fundamental. And so once we type that in there, we're going to, you see the image size, and I can browse to where that is going to be, saved, if you will. And that way I can also pull it up on my desktop or on my screen. But I'm just going to click the publish option and click the OK. And at this stage, it's going to go through and it's going to begin the publishing of that photo. Now, at this point, you can see once I hit bring this onto the screen, it's actually now showing me, what I've got. Now, I've done a couple of classes, so I've got a couple of these. This is ours here. I obviously need to add something like hardwood into our drawing because it is not there. Whereas this one here that is actually got some more finishes in. In both cases, you'll be able to come in here to the link option, and this is where you can grab this link and copy this to your social media page, or you can go to the embed option, and this will allow you to take it and copy it into a WordPress site script. Okay, so either way, but once I do this, I'll now be able to come in. So I'm going to grab this one, which has got a little more finish on here, and just click the link, and I'll grab this option, and I'm just going to copy that. So simply Control C. And now I'm going to come back to my actual Facebook page at this point, and I'm going to be able to come in here and just paste that link in there. Now, at this stage, if I take a look at the 3D viewer, it's going to take me to that option. Now, I'm going to come in here with the publish for just a second, and I'm going to schedule this when I want this to appear. So let's say tomorrow, and I'll click the schedule button, and at this point now, it's going to publish that as of tomorrow, to my Facebook page, and I will have that image coming up there. And so as this is what is going to be shown to the client, so they'll be able to go in and be able to see that on your page, and you can tag them, you can link them to it. So it's a very, very simple process to do it. And I'm going to drag that off of there, and so we're excited about that. The next thing that I want to take you into as we move, onto something else. So let me come in and just create a brand new drawing at this stage. And so I'll get a blank one here. And just by the name, you'll know exactly what I'm doing. And it's called a PDF import. And this is something that you've been asking for a while is the ability to bring in, those PDFs, and whether that's going to be details that were created, or whether that's going to be, site plans, etc., or even floor plans, that you may be getting back from an engineer, and you just want to bring that PDF import in there and convert it to shapes. Now, so what we will do now is SoftPlan version 2020 allows you to import the PDF drawings, and beyond what 2018 did, it allows you to import them as shapes within the plan. And so as I come in through the file, I'm going to go to Simple Review, and where it says the PDF format here, you'll see I can import PDFs as shapes. And so as I do that and click on it, it's going to allow me to now go to the, in my case, I'm going to go to my actual desktop, and here I'm going to select the PDF import for the drawing. And so when I do this, at this stage, this is the PDF import right here that I want to have converted to shapes, and I'll even be able to go in at this stage and set the scale for what that should be importing as. And so in this case, I'm going to go with the 1 inch equals 20 feet, and then I could select the position. Now, I need to actually go in and probably increase my drawing workspace that I'm working on, and so I'm going to come in through File and Drawing Options for right now, and I'm going to go to, and I'll explain this in just a moment, to the workspace limits. And let me just change the work size space to something a little larger, and we'll click OK. And so as we do that, and I'll right click to cancel that, you'll see that it brought the PDF in. The difference being from the previous versions is this is no longer an image, but rather I can select edit on this, and as I pick this, these are going to be converted to lines. Once they are lines, we can do more with that, because we can now use the edit tool, and we can begin to convert lines to walls. We can convert things to sight lines within the actual program inside site mode. So there's much more that you can actually do with this, and your notes are going to be converted to the option of the details and overview notes. So this is, I think this is going to be a huge time saver for you. It's one of the more exciting things for me personally that's being brought in, because of the fact that we can literally convert this to shapes on the fly, and then you can use the conversion tools to get things in there. Okay, a couple of things that I'm going to talk about that I don't necessarily have an ability to show you right now how to do this. So I just want to take you into it. But some of you actually work in offices where you're sharing projects, and as soon as you're sharing projects, you're inevitably going to run into something where two of you try to open a project at the same time, and if you both actually access the same drawings, then what can happen is the last person to save is going to win. So with this version, we've actually gone in and we've implemented the ability to lock open projects so that if the SoftPlan project is already opened by another user, it will be locked from being opened a second time. Again, this is an option, but this is going to be something that allows you to, control not having multiple people working on the same, project, same drawing, and then ultimately, someone's changes get flushed. So we think that's going to be a big thing that you've been asking for previous to this version. All file locking capabilities had to be done through your operating system, through your network, etc. And not everybody was comfortable or knowledgeable enough to be able to do that. So we're excited about that. Also, for the remodelers in the crowd, okay, going out to a job site, shooting distances, marking that on a sheet, if you will, then transferring that to SoftPlan and getting the drawing done, okay. We have linked up, and it'll be inside your dimension options. You're going to see right here, I've got to connect to disto. All right, so if you are, someone that's going out and you're shooting, as-built dimensions already on the drawing, we now have the ability through your Bluetooth, capabilities to link your disto, shooter, if you will, laser shooter, to SoftPlan. Now, I don't want to sell this for what it's not. There's a lot of positive here. It doesn't draw the walls for you. What you have to have done, if I zoom into this garage for a second, is I would have had to have drawn these 4 walls, okay, and I would have drawn in the horizontal and vertical dimension. However, at that point, I could shoot the disto and edit this dimension, and it would through the Bluetooth, it would automatically input the dimension shot into this field for me. Okay, so it's something that if you have a rough layout of a plan already sketched prior to getting there, and then you've got some dimensions in place, you shoot the laser, it inputs the dimension for you here, and then you hit the left or the right arrow key in order to have that done. And so once again, we think that that's going to be a time saver for those of you who are going, especially in the remodeling field, where you're doing a lot of shooting dimensions right on the fly. You can change that on your laptop with your SoftPlan in the field, rather than coming back and then realizing you forgot to get a dimension, somewhere, and then saving time so you're not returning to the field. Okay, so that was locking open projects and disto. Something else that has been added, you can see just in the garage right now, there is a it's very cluttered. There's a lot of dimensions and notations going on there. And so something that we have added that you've been asking for is the ability to have keynotes and a keynote schedule. So simply put, if I edit this note that we've got right here, okay, or I edit this note that I've got here, either way, you just right click, edit on the note. Now notice the entire note has highlighted at this point. And something that I can go down into the lower right-hand corner here is and set that as a keynote. And so as I click on that, I'll be able to set up the outline and what that's going to look like and so on. So I'm setting this to have a circle, and I'll click OK. And what has happened now is the note has been replaced with the number 1. Now, I can leave that as if you will, a 1 on the actual drawing, or in my case here, I could even come in through the pointer option, and I can have that number 1, and I can then add a pointer pointing to on the area of the drawing. Then further to that, I can now go over to notes, and I can select the keynote schedule, and I can click to add this in. I'm going to say yes to turning the visibility on for that, and at this stage now, we have a keynote ID right there and what the note is going to read. And so in some cases, it's in particular if you don't like to have the notes all over your floor plan, this is an effective way to declutterize the actual area of the floor plan, and then just have a table of contents with your notes and dimension, your notes off to the right hand side. So again, something that's been asked for, over time. Okay, I'm going to zoom out on my model here, and something else that we have added, that will expedite the process, is many of you have seen over the years the three-dimensional framing model, and you would call into our tech support staff and say, how do I generate the 3D stick frame that I've seen? And in the past, in other versions, what you would have to do is after you generated the model, you'd have to go to options, extraction options, turn the framing on. Then once you've done the framing, you would go to File, Material File, Load, and you would load the stick frame SPM. So what we did is we tried to just expedite this process for you by making it a single click. And so what you can do is under the navigation menu, you can just come in and you can generate what you want your model to look like. And so here I've just done the visible line because that's going to generate the quickest. You can go in through the shaded, that's going to generate fairly quickly. I'm not going to generate the texture, although it would generate decently. At this stage, you get kind of the gist of what it will do. So if you're looking to show off the framing or talk about the framing, or perhaps you're using the framing to work something out, it's just a simple single click up here. And then once you have done that and you're happy with it and you want to return to what you've got, you can then just click on your save 3D view or the default 3D views to take you back to your model. Okay, so that should expedite the process for those of you who are doing that. A couple of minutes ago, I took you into a PDF import, the 3D option there, and I imported it. And one of the things I did is I went in through File and Drawing Options, and when I did that, okay, you saw that it said Use Project Drawing Template, Use Custom Drawing Options. And basically, in essence, what we've done is we've added a kind of an intermediate level between the system options and the drawing options, which called the project template, which will allow you to go in and set up, that all of your drawings, basically go back and look at your project level template. And so this is when you create a drawing, what it does is in essence, the drawing options are created using a mirror or a snapshot, however you want to put it, of your system options, and that's what happens with your drawing. And then if your system options change, your drawing, it remains static to whatever it was when it was created. So you can wind up in the course of, a set of plans, a main floor, a basement, a site, and so on, having different drawing options for all of these. If you leave these things pointed to your project options at this stage, as you make changes to the project options, these will actually point, your drawing options will actually point back to that, and they will update them consistently. This is we think a big time saver for you, so that all drawings on a project, they're being controlled at the project level. Changes like configurations, note font sizes, all will carry through to the drawing level now for you with one change. And then if you want different drawing options required for different drawings, such as site plans, detailed drawings, elevations, etc., you can now set up your drawing option templates and then just use them on specific drawings. And so, that's something that you can definitely go ahead for site plans, where you might want to have something that's at a different scale for your notes, etc., and then a detail sheet. So that's something that's going to be able to be done. And you can go in through your let me close this here for a second, your file, your project options, and then you'll be able to go into your actual template, and set some of this information up, as far as, what you're using, as far as your settings are concerned. Okay, so moving forward, I want to take you into a feature that is fairly popular for those of you who are doing 3D. Now, when you're inside a three-dimensional model, and so I'll just zoom in here, okay, at this stage, and as I move into the model, when I'm standing here, my viewpoint is kind of controlled right based on the camera and the focus point and what it's looking at. And in order to see what I'm going to see when I'm standing here, and a classic case would be when I'm standing at the island, can I see the TV? Right? That's kind of a big one for our clients at this stage. Am I able to see the TV? Am I able to see the company that I'm preparing for, et cetera, et cetera? And so one of the things that we've added to the floor plan inside the three-dimensional mode, or the 3D mode here, is something called sightline study. And so I'm going to zoom this up for right now, and that's where the camera is. That's our viewpoint that we've got. But when I'm standing here, unless I use the arrow key to spin myself around or generate that 3D, that 360 view, I'm not going to know. This will give you a quick way. Okay, so I'll click the sightline study, and as I move my cursor, you can see that it's basically shading in where or what I'm going to be able to see. And so as I click, and I'm going to just hit escape to cancel that, I can now see standing here, this is what is going to be viewable for me. In other words, I can't actually see the front foyer from when I'm standing here. Okay, blind spots are going to include, this column, which isn't really a big deal because I can see mostly out this window, but it could become a big deal depending on what you're doing. And so this feature is just, is something that one of our developers, developed for his own use, and we thought it was a really cool tool, and so we've added it to SoftPlan version 2020, and we think it's really something that you're going to be able to use a lot. When you can move them around, you can erase them. So at this stage, I can come in and I could either move it or I can erase that, and then I could just click and I could say, okay, when we're standing in the front door, what can I see? And again, now in this case, as I move them around, I'll be able to see, what is going to be visible for me. Okay, and so that's just depending on where you place that or where you move that to, we will generate that for you. All right, so that's some of the big features that we've got in there. Let me take myself back into the 3D model for just 1 second, and I'm going to spin myself around here. Because there's a really great tool in here. I'm a kitchen guy, so I do a lot of kitchen designs and bathroom designs. And so those of you who do the same thing will appreciate this next tool, I think. This is, hypothetically, here's our kitchen, and it's not out of the question that we would want to add some sort of a backsplash tile or running the counter up or whatever we're going to do here. And in essence, on something like this, you would basically edit the actual, cabinet itself, right? And then I could go to the accessories, and this is where I would get my tile backsplash. Now, when I do that and I click OK, all right, I'm going to get the tile backsplash that's going to run up behind the counter itself. So it's now just generating that real quick. And you can see this is it here. And it always stopped at the range. Okay, because there wasn't a cabinet there. And so what in essence you would wind up doing if you were me is, in a lot of cases, I wouldn't use this option. I would turn it off, and then I would use the interior mode and sketch some sort of a wall covering here that would then I'd modify the height for it, and I would then attach a texture to it. So one of the things that you can do now is, as part of this, is you can come into the accessories, and I turn the tile backsplash on, okay, and I can come in here and have it cover the gap. And when I do that, what it will do is at this stage is it's going to extend this tile over on the left-hand side to cover that gap for me, okay, on the model. And that's going to give me a truer three-dimensional model. That's going to be a better option for my bill of materials, as far as the model is concerned. So this feature here should make your life a lot easier for doing that. And of course, then this cabinet here, I would simply just come into the same accessories, tile backsplash, and I'm just going to add it. I could have the option of having it covered to the right and so on, but I don't need it because this one's covering to the left. And so now we have our tile in there, and all I would be left to do is add a texture to that as far as the model is concerned. And so whether it's going to be tile or whether I'm just, going to have the counter run up there. But so that's going to be found under your tile backsplash, and then you can go to the accessories and have that, done on the model itself. Okay. Other things that just to quickly talk about here. So I'm going to move back to my floor plan for just a moment, and I'm going to change into ceiling mode, and I'm going to zoom into this garage at the rear, and because this is really not realistic, I'm going to actually talk about adding ceiling trusses to this. And so inside ceiling mode itself, I'm just going to come in and I'm going to, add a pitch to this. So we've got our 312. Let's just say we make that a 612 pitch, and then I'm going to edit this, and I'm just going to, apply a gable to that there, and I'll do the same thing here. So repeat edit. There we go. And so inside let me break out my 3D. And I've just got a lot going on here, so I may want to shut down a few of these options. But one of the things that you'll be able to do is inside the ceiling mode, you'll be able to go in through draw. And when I'm in, let me go back into my main floor plan. Inside ceiling, you'll see we have ceiling truss and ceiling truss set. And so I'll be able to come in and I can either add a single one, or in this case, I'm going to draw a set across here, similar to how you would draw your actual, roof trusses. But in this case, these are going to affix to the underside of the drywall rather than going, all the way up to the sheathing itself. And so as I come back into this model, and I'm going to, zoom myself out, and I'm trying to stay in the shaded mode mainly for, the time for regeneration. And I'm going to just remove the roof out of here for just a second because we don't necessarily need it to show what I'm doing. And then I will zoom into the garage so we can look up. And there you see I've got my ceiling trusses being generated. And so these, in essence, can be then edited. And they're showing black just mainly because of, that's just my texture that's assigned right now. But as I edit these, okay, you'll see that you'll be able to go in and set all of the dimensions up, okay, just like you would normal trussing, what the spacing is going to be, etc., and even the style of the truss that's going to be used, okay, for these. So that should help you to go in and quickly, generate this. In the past, I know that you had to do a lot of finagling in order to get these false type of trusses in there. Okay, to go along with this, I'm going to pull myself back out for just a second. So I'll close this out, and let's zoom back out. And that same roof that I erased, I'm going to want. And so let me just hit undo, and we'll put it back. And one of the things that we've added is the ability to have gable and false trusses on there. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to erase a couple of items off of here. I'm going to edit this roof here. And so we'll just pick the edit item on this and select it. And I actually want to get my option up here. Okay, so let's edit this roof edge right here, and we're going to change that to be a gable option. And so when I change that to a gable option, you'll see that I have the option of adding an accent truss. So let me get the drawing up for you real quick. And once we've done that, then I'll re-edit so you can see it being added to the plan. And again, this is something I could do in the annotated elevations. Of course, I've got some roof framing on here that I don't necessarily want. So let me remove that just quickly so that it doesn't distract or detract from what we're doing. And so I'm just going to come in through erase and type erase. And under my roof, I'm just going to take my rafters off for right now. and say yes. And so when I do that, this is my gable that I've got here, and I'm going to reapply that with a 12-inch overhang because it'd be something that we would, probably more likely have. And then as I come back into the model, I'll re-edit that gable end, and I'll be able to add the accent truss, and then from there, you'll be able to modify or specify the dimensions on it in a similar way to what you, would have done with the ceiling truss just a moment ago. So I can add in the accent truss, and then once I come into the accent truss option, I'll be able to specify all of this dimension right here. I'll be able to pick what the truss is going to look like, and once I've clicked OK, I'll have it regenerate the model and show it to us on the actual plan. So this feature is something that a lot of us are doing, and I know I'm actually doing one right now. And in the case of what I was trying to do, I would wind up putting in beams that were sloped, and then the beams themselves, as they were sloped, at that stage, I would then, you can see it being added in there. So previously this would be a beam, and then you'd have another one here, and you'd be playing around with a lot of sloping. Now you can just modify it and have it automatically added to the drawing. Okay, a couple of other quick items, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, after I show off a few other major items to you, I'm going to just kind of run through a laundry list of things that I think I'll try to do my best to explain them to you, because we won't have time to demonstrate all of them. As I change into the drawing mode, for those of you who are, doing, ramps and so on, okay, we have given you in previous versions the ability to put kind of that wedge ramp in, but it really wasn't a deck ramp where you could use it for the bill of materials. And so we have added that into SoftPlan version 2020, the ability to have a wood frame ramp and command, as part of the deck stairs option. So you'll be able to come in through the draw, and then as you come in through stair and you pick sketch, we've got the deck ramp down here now. And so as I click this, and I'm just going to randomly draw one out here, but I'll be able to edit this deck ramp. Okay, and as I click on this with the ramp, you'll see it gives me what my run is going to be in my width. So it's about 5 feet in width, and it's got a 15 foot or so. And then I'll be able to go in here and input the rise. Now I'm going to put in something that's and even a directional arrow. But as I look at this, you'll see the preview over here in the lower left-hand side. There's my ramp, and again, if I were to jump into the 3D, okay, we can see there's the ramp at this stage, and this is going to allow you to create that as far as 3D is concerned, but also for your bill of materials. I know some of you had gotten creative. I've seen on the user forums where you created this as stairs and you kept stair stepping it up, 1/8 of an inch at a time and so on in order to create that sort of option. So now it's just simply a matter of using the Draw Deck Ramp tool, give it the rise, and this is going to automatically calculate this for you and give you the bill of materials. Okay, so that should be able to save you a lot of time, as far as the drawing is concerned. Couple of things about dimensions. Let me zoom in, over here. I'm just going to erase something out of the way so that we don't need to see it. But I've got a series of openings that are, if you will, there are 3 windows kind of mulled together there. The extension lines now, as I edit them, I'll have the ability to go in and add to it a what the appearance is going to be. Previously, your extension lines were all solid, so now I'll be able to go in and add that center line option there. And so if you want to call out your center lines for your certain items to look different than they do in other places, like the end of walls, etc., you can certainly edit that and have your extension lines changed. In addition to that, you're going to be able to come in now and this is something especially those of you who are possibly working from as done drawings, so you're keying in dimensions. So for example, I could type in the 8 foot 6 inches, but then I'll be able to hit at this stage plus, and I'm just going to put in 7/16 of an inch. Okay, and so no more having to convert that to the actual decimal point first. So once I've typed this in, it will take the 8 foot 6 that I had there plus the 7/16 of an inch, and it will automatically do that conversion to a decimal format for me. And so that's a big one in particular in the remodeling world, where you're working with a lot of dimensions on the fly, and you don't get the option of having necessarily every dimension being designed to a nominal 4-inch or rounded setting. Speaking of rounded dimensions, something that has been asked for a while, okay, is the ability, as I'm editing a dimension, okay, to have it round to the nearest dimension and add dynamically to the overall string. So in the event that I were to edit this dimension right here, and let's just say 4 foot 1.25 inches is the dimension that's going to be there. That's the real world. That's what it really is. However, I will now be able to come in and edit this and change this to round to nearest and whatever I want as far as that's concerned. This was previously linked down here to the show text, etc. And so as I do that, the dimension will be dynamically rounded, in my case, to the nearest inch for me. We do color code it. We want you to know that you've made that change, on the drawing itself. But this round to nearest option, being part of the dynamic dimensions, is new. And so in particular, when you're doing presentation drawings, we all know the stud is 3.5 inches, but we don't necessarily want to show that as part of our drawing. You'll be able to go in and display that. Okay, one other big one for me that that I definitely want to show you. Well, actually, kind of two. Those of you who are West Coast, or your design takes you more towards the contemporary style of design, I want to come in through File, System Options, and System Library. And as I pop through File, System Options, and Library, I'm going to come into Openings, and in this case here, I'm just going to add a custom library for just a moment, okay? And once I've clicked on this, I'm going to add, through the one-step option, I'm going to, type in my 30 by 60, ABC, whatever the product code is, okay, for my opening. And here I'm going to pick my shape as to what I'm going to use, and so I'll pick my casement, and so I'm basically creating a window at this point. And I'm going to edit this individual component here, and this is where I can change that, 3 foot by 6 foot. But the big change that's been added here is the ability to now go in and add vertical and horizontal sections for this, which is going to allow you to create that more modern or contemporary style look. So as I click on this and I change this to, having 3 vertical sections, you can see exactly what I get as far as the options concerned. And similarly, if I go in now and change this, it's all one unit, and I've got my different panes that are going to be in there, and save that into the library. So that's something that's been asked for a while, and so you can now create your library openings, like so. The other thing that we have added, and as far as the openings are concerned, if I edit this one over here on the left-hand side, and I'm just going to go and just add some default exterior trim, and let me just change this into a visible line so you can actually see it. But you'll have the ability to go in, okay, and edit this, and you'll be able to change this to have what is that I'm looking. Let me take a look at this in the elevation mode real quick. I'm going to pop over to my 3D. And let me zoom into this opening here. Okay, and I'm going to edit it in the elevation here, which will make it a little easier for me. And I'm going to change this back to default, and just because it'll show a little bit better. And let me just regenerate that so it's okay. So now that I've got my elevation with not having the overhangs and the custom on here, as I edit this for just a moment and I go into the exterior trim, I'll have the deflection that I can add in here. And as I do this, this is going to allow me to create, the jack arch, if you will, on top of the opening itself. And so at this stage right here, I had some overhangs going on, so I just opted to put it back to the general, but it's just simply a matter of editing the opening, and once you're in the exterior trim, you'll then be able to come in and modify the deflection to suit as far as part of the opening itself. One more thing that I want to show you, and then I'm going to run through kind of just a listing of some things that you'll want to look for with the software. As I'm taking a look and I edit this garage wall that I have here, 2x4 siding, and I'm actually going to go into the wall definition for just a moment and slide this slider bar over here. You'll notice right now that it's showing a profile of 8 inches, and that's why when I take a look at this inside the my annotated elevation, looking at it from the left-hand side, I'm seeing the siding, even though I'm not actually painting that texture on there. What I'm actually generating from here is the ability for that to have a profile being extracted on there. Now, as I'm editing this, if I come into the wall definition menu and I scroll this over to the right-hand side and I click on this profile, I have the ability now. I'm selecting the board and batten to add a vertical profile. So in other words, I've created the board and batten, which would be horizontal, and now I'm selecting that to run vertical on the drawing. And so at this stage now, I'm changing the wall definition menu altogether so that we would now have, vertical board and batten being generated on the plan itself. This will allow you to have, a more detailed three-dimensional model. It's going to allow your elevations to show more accurately without having to paint in that vertical, texture on the model, which is what you were previously doing. And so this is just going through and generating that. And as it does, I'm going to basically at this stage, I'm really just kind of looking at our what's new marketing material. It's 15 or 16 pages in length, with line by line. These are all the things that have been added to the plan. And so let me just run through a few of the things. As far as those of you who do 3D, we've added caustic color reflections and refractions options to the ray trace rendered model. That's going to allow you to show distortion for materials like glass, where you're actually looking at it and it's going to show you that the distortion with the texture and so on. If you've got elevations where you've got different heights and so on there, okay, we're going to allow common textures on coplanar walls to carry through, so you won't actually see the seam going between an 8 and 12-foot wall as far as the plan is concerned. Okay, so that's something that also will be able to do. The set wall tops command has been added to 3D, so if you're doing 3Ds, you'll be able to go in and do that on the model as well. And so that's another item that has been added to expedite those of you who enjoy drawing inside 3D. Okay, so that's just going to be done under the edit, and you'll have the set wall tops command that's going to be there. Continuing on, items that can be assigned to a building option can now be assigned using the right-click option. So those of you who use those, that has been added. Okay, we've added a line type option to freeform countertops so that you can assign your own options there. We have, updated the importing and exporting of AutoCAD DWG 2018 as well as SketchUp to 2018 file format. So all of those are going to be, also available to you. We've added a create attic space command. I didn't have time to take you through that today, but basically it's going to automatically generate or place subfloors, walls, ceilings, and room finishes to construct within the attic space of a room cavity. So you've got your attic trusses in place. You'll be able to auto attic and add some of that information in there, like subfloors and ceilings and room mode, etc. Other options that have been added, we talked about with the notes being able to set up as entered uppercase or lowercase. If you click on the area of a paint, it will now list, edit a paint pattern. It will now list the area of the paint pattern for you. So that's good to know square footage wise. Inside the roof mode, you're going to be able to now edit a roof. And as you edit that roof, okay, on the individual edge, one of the options that you will have is the ability to now go in and add roof vents. And as you do, roof vents will now be added to the drawing, okay, and based on square footages that you can do as far as the plan is concerned. We've added a site hole command that can be used to cut holes in non-property items like site polygons and so on. So this is helpful if you want to accommodate a pool. That's a big one. For those of you who are using ultra high definition monitors, it's basically going to be easier for me to just simply say that the display properties have been greatly improved. So, things like how you navigate in 3D, the camera, the dialog sizes have all been increased, 3D surface, icons, how it reacts and so on for you. All of that has been improved so that your high definition monitor itself is going to be much easier, much pleasing to use. A big one that we added with symbols is the ability, and we'll be posting a video on this one shortly as well, is what we call bump technology. So as you're basically drawing a symbol and you're sliding or moving it along a wall, it will bump into another object. And for that, let me take you into the main floor plan because I really want to show you this one, quickly. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to cross erase and just get rid of a bunch of information here, real quick. And I'm going to go back into my back into that, where's that floor plan real quick. And so I've taken all of this information out and I'm going to, draw in, I've got this. And so as I move this thing, it's subtle, but it will actually bump up against other symbols or walls. And so as I'm moving this, it gets close and all of a sudden it snaps to there right at the last minute, finding that, on the drawing itself. And so the same thing for symbols. This should make it easier for you to place furniture symbols and objects, in particular on those angled walls. It will snap to it as you're moving and placing it along. And so that's going to be a kind of a big item that we think you're going to use a lot of. Again, please watch our social media pages if you're interested in seeing some of the new features that are coming out. We're trying to post one mid-morning, mid-afternoon every day of the week, Monday through Friday, for you to be able to see what's coming. If you have SoftPlan, the pre-release already of SoftPlan version 2020, we encourage you to go to our user forum. There's a pre-release forum that you can go in and discuss some of your issues with. If you're trying to learn how to use something or you spot something with it, etc. Thank you for joining us today. As you can tell, I'm pretty excited about what we've got here. We as a company are really proud of SoftPlan version 2020, and we think it's going to be a big step up for those of you. And we just want to thank you for all of your feedback. This has been built on things that you have asked for. And we think there's a lot in there. Have a great rest of your Friday and weekend, and we'll look forward to perhaps crossing paths with you in the near future.